he was just kind of checking us out, trying to see if we were armed, and trying to see if we were worth robbing. And he pulled out a 9mm pistol. I heard 2 shots. The first one missed. The second one hit me in the shoulder, just here. Just kind of grabbed the gunman and pushed him under, essentially just trying to drown him.
Brilliant move.
Hello, I'm John Bathgate. I was leading Amazon Summit to Sea expedition. I'm a former Royal Marine Commando.
I'm Ian Roberts. I'm also a former Royal Marine Commando.
And survived a pirate attack in Peru. The plan for Amazon Summit to Sea was to travel down the length of the Amazon from its highest source, which is the top of a mountain in Ecuador called Chimborazo. It's an extinct volcano. It's the highest mountain in Ecuador. The top of it is the furthest point on the surface of the Earth from the Earth's centre. And nobody had yet connected those 2 dots, and we wanted to be the first team to travel that journey.
Roughly 5,128 kilometres, I think.
That's not even rough, that's exact.
That's exact. A lot of the time we're sort of inundated with emails and modern life, and I think we struggle with it sometimes. I think a lot of guys and girls do. And being out in the wilderness is hugely important to both of us, and a time just to be able to not have that connection to, electricity, essentially, social media and all that sort of thing. Basically, the hardship that you go through to complete the challenge expedition is just great for your mind, because it just alleviates anything in your head that could, that's just not important, I guess.
Inspiration for Amazon Summit to Sea was my father. He was leading an expedition in Peru in 1968 to climb a face of Nevada Hondoy. And on that trip, he discovered the story about Chimborazo being the highest source. And he thought as a climber, it'd be great to follow the river from its highest source. And he never got round to that. 2 years ago, as I was leaving the Marines, he kind of recognized that I needed a next project. And he presented the idea of it to me. And since then, I was planning it for 2 years, mapped it, and got Ian and my brother and some other friends on board. Mm. We set out and tried to get it done, and didn't quite work to plan. But
no, the fatal email you sent me to drag me down the Amazon.
Yeah.
No, I was happy to go.
There's only one way to follow the Amazon River from its highest source, and that's picking our way down the river as water flows. And the Pastaza, which leaves Ecuador and goes into Peru, is not a well-travelled way to get into Peru. When we did get into Peru, nobody had seen a Westerner for 10 years. They had heard that Westerners are trouble. Most of the villages that we went into, we had a hard time explaining to them that we were not a threat, and we were simply trying to pass by. And on a couple of occasions, we were, I guess abducted is the right word, until we could prove to them that we were not a threat. The first instant was probably the most worrying for us, because we weren't experienced with it. We paddled past a community, and about a mile downstream from the community, 2 pekis, which are long native canoes with engines, caught up to us. I think there was 11 guys on board, some of them holding machetes, and all of them shouting at us, and threw ropes around our canoes and forcefully sort of brought us to the side. But at no point did I think this is going to be a fight. However, I think we were ready for it just in case, but nobody was openly aggressive. They were shouting, but they weren't making moves towards us.
You have to look at them to know they were not bad men. They just were confused while we were there, and kind of, I think they, as blokes often do when they're in a group, they just rile each other up. So we were just come to be quiet and meek and try and understand what they were saying, and eventually we were taken, sort of dragged back to their, not forcibly dragged, but the boats we were towed upstream to their village, and that's where we sat on a kind of panel, wasn't it? It was like
the entire village, all the villagers came into this hall and sat us in front, and basically it was a kangaroo court, and they were trying to decide what to do with us.
We had to get passport. Everything from our pockets was taken out and put on the table, and I'm sure everyone can relate. If someone asks for your passport, it's usually only at immigration that you want to be giving your passport over to anyone, but they're like, "Oh, give us your passports," and there's nothing we could do. We just kind of had to just sit there and wait to see what they were going to do with us. But they weren't nasty. They just
confused,
and then just get a bit angry because of their confusion as to what we're doing there. And the last Westerner they had seen was 10 years before, and some doctor was on a program out there.
They associate Westerners with people that are going to steal their children's organs. It is frustrating because they genuinely believe that. So when they were searching us, they were looking for surgical equipment, anything we could use to take organs from children. And once they discovered that we didn't have that equipment, they became a bit friendlier and eventually allowed us to pass by.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous because you sort of think about it. We're in canoe. We don't have engines. We can't get anywhere quickly. We don't have refrigerators on board to be able to store any organs if that's what we're into.
Those scenarios, I guess, helped us understand how the rest of the expedition would go. We were very comfortable with the nature and the environment. It was dealing with the people, which was sometimes frustrating. Sometimes it took a long time, but once we'd dealt with it a few times, we were able to navigate that a bit easier. And it also enabled us to see if people were dangerous or not. Being abducted sounds dangerous, but you can tell in the guy's eyes if they're dangerous men or not, and they weren't dangerous. But when we were eventually attacked by pirates, the look in their eyes was different. 5 a.m. on the 30th, we woke up in Pebas, which is a village about 4 days paddle downstream from Iquitos. Packed up our hammocks and got on the water. About 2.5 hours into the day's paddling, we heard there's a lot of boats and traffic on the river near Pebas, but further down the river there was a lot less traffic. And we heard an engine approaching us from the rear. The river's about 2 kilometres wide here, so anyone looking to pass by would have probably been off to the side of us, but this guy was right on our stern. Came in, stopped, came in a bit closer, stopped, and then eventually came alongside us. There was no reason for him to be there. He wasn't asking us for things. He wasn't offering us anything. He was just kind of checking us out, trying to see if we were armed, and trying to see if we were worth robbing. And after about 5 minutes, he decided that we were worth robbing, and he pulled out a 9mm pistol.
He didn't talk much at all. Yeah, he had that just look of, it's just a malevolent look in his eyes. It's quite a unique experience to see someone's face when they know they're going to pull a pistol out to try and, essentially kill us.
The boat that they were on was a 7-meter long peki, so it's a long native canoe with an engine on the back. The guy at the rear was standing on the engine, and he said very little. But the guy that ended up pulling the weapon out was quite a young looking lad, shorts, football top, cap on, and blatantly drunk as well. You could see the red lines in his eyes from 2 or 3 days drinking.
Yeah,
it's been Peruvian Independence Day a couple of days prior to that, which is a big festival, so he might have been suffering from a hangover.
We went to leave. We were like, okay, cool, we're Vamanos, we're going, kind of, and that's when he grabbed the line on our boat, which really irritates me because I just can't stand it when someone else grabs a rope on your boat. It's kind of it's almost like pulling your tail. He was kind of directioning for us to go off down basically the left side of an island, which wasn't the main flow. It wasn't the main flow, but it's still probably twice as big as the Thames. And as he was sort of gesturing to do that, I think we both sort of understood what this was. But before we could really do anything, he pulled the pistol out, and it changed the dynamics completely. I had a paddle in my hand, and he was close enough, so I thrust my paddle and sort of high up in his chest and put him off balance. Just I didn't want him to be able to get that pistol up on aim. We'd kind of discussed before, the two of us were pretty comfortable in the water, quite good swimmers, and we thought one of the only ways we can really take on an amount of men in a canoe is to capsize them and then play kind of king of the castle with the underwater, essentially. So I sort of went for that and dove in, and came up on the other side. When I saw that, I basically jumped onto their boat. I heard 2 shots. The first one missed. The second one hit me in the shoulder, just here. And the next thing I knew, I was in the water. So I must have
either fallen or jumped out of the boat at that point. And then I remember being under their boat thinking, which side should I come up on? Assuming that when I do come up, the guy's just going to pop one in my head, because he'd got the high ground and the weapon at that point. Ian had already surfaced, and he was in the process of capsizing their boat and kind of wrestling with the gunman. As soon as I saw that, I just kind of grabbed the gunman and pushed him under, essentially just trying to drown him.
Brilliant move. Johnny came out like a blinking shark and just dragged him under. Their canoe had completely filled with water and was kind of going over. The guy on the engine had just flown in, fell straight into the water. And I was having a bit of a wrestle with the gunman holding his gun arm from a bit of a precarious position, trying to keep it away from my face and centre of mass. So but as that was going over, luckily John surfaced and just plunged this guy straight underwater. Solved the problem for me quite nicely. But then you got shot again, didn't you?
Yeah, so I probably should have been aiming for his weapon hand instead of just plunging his head under. He shot me again through the leg, and at that point I sort of realised that I needed to get this weapon off him as quickly as possible. And we were in murky water, and I wasn't able to see, but I was able to train my hand down his arm and found the weapon at the end of his hand and twisted it out the back of his hand and fired 2 shots in return at him, and one of them hit him in the hip, and then I was able to surface and we swam as quickly as we could back to our boat, which had drifted off slightly.
Saw the guy, the gunman, clamber onto the underside of his canoe. See he didn't have the weapon, so I was like, John, let's get out of here. And we swam over to the canoes, and that's when I got in first. And then John said, I've been shot twice, and I think I swore quite a bit. I thought that's not ideal at all. But John, he functioning, managed to get back into his side on the canoes. And then he said, "Oh, I've got the pistol as well." And I was like, "Oh, that's good drills."
Nice feeling to have that weapon, because we weren't sure if there was anyone else inbound. We weren't sure if the community downstream were going to be friendly, if these guys were from that community. So it was good to have that bit of security. Very fortunate that both rounds were pretty much flesh wounds. I was able to function almost fully. The one that went through my shoulder snapped the nerve that goes to my bicep, so my bicep was out of action, but my arm was still working. I was still able to swim, still able to fight, and still able to paddle within reason. As we were paddling away, we kind of looked back, and the last we saw was the 2 lads bailing out their boat. So I think they'd managed to turn it back over, and they were trying to bail it out. They had lost their engine, and one of them had been shot in the hip. So I think he was pretty useless. They drifted away to the other side of the river, and when we got into the village, the villagers found some local police who went and picked up the 2 lads. So those lads were then detained.
John was rapid on the getting straight onto Garmin to send the SOS. I was paddling back in, and he'd give me the pistol to sort of check the magazine chamber. We had 4 rounds, and we worried that these guys would have friends that would be chasing them up, and we didn't know if the village was going to be friendly. But luckily we saw a couple of guys on the bank, and we were shouting help. And we saw women and children on the bank, which is just a good sign that the men will behave. And the guys that came to help us they just see it, going from looking at one face of the attacker to looking at these guys' faces. There's a huge difference. They were just lovely blokes who came in and helped us, and it was a real relief, because we were, oh, thank God they're going to look after us and get us into the village. And we just sort of showed them where the pistol was, because we didn't want to look like we were going to be a threat. So and it went from there, really, didn't it?
Yeah, they sent an armada of support, SEALs, an infirmary boat, like gunboat, and they
amazing.
Ended up taking us back to Iquitos and giving me really good care. So huge thank you to all the lads from the Peruvian Navy. The round that I took in the leg, I took underwater, so a lot of the quite dirty Amazon River water followed the bullet into my muscle. So when I got back to Iquitos, the doctor was scooshing some disinfectant water up into the wound and pushing it all out, and then he had to sort of cut around the wounds, get rid of the dead skin, and then stitch them back together. and that was all the treatment I needed for the leg. I was fine. I was able to walk and do everything. But unfortunately, the one that went through my shoulder snapped a nerve that goes to my bicep. So I don't have any feeling in this part of my arm, and I can't move my bicep. But other than that, the arm works well. So once that was highlighted to orthopedics back in Scotland, they got me straight in to plastic surgeons in the Glasgow Royal, and they put me under the knife for most of the working day. Managed to take some nerves out of my calf and then graft them to the damaged area in my shoulder. Unbelievable work from the NHS. So I can't believe people have the abilities to do that kind of thing, and very fortunate that they were able to fix me. And I'll be 6 months of doing physio, and hopefully my bicep will be fully recovered by the end of that.
We're going to take a bigger team back. Be mostly bootnecks, Marines that will be coming with us. We're more secure for when we return to finish the job.